Okay, so multiple choice, 13, I think it's through 22. Okay, well, value of x satisfies the equation, so we have to solve this quadratic. So this tells me with the square root here and here probably suggests there's going to be a radical in the answer. Otherwise, it's factorable. So let's see. I have x squared plus 4x minus 1 equals 0. So I'm just going to go for it and do completing the square because it looks easier to me than having to do quadratic formula, and there's no numbers that multiply to make 1 that add to make 4, so it can't be factored. So remember, we do b over 2 squared. Half of 4 is 2, 2 squared. 4. So this becomes x plus 2 all squared. Oops, I forgot to add 4 over here. Becomes equals 5. Remember, we add to both sides to keep it balanced. Square root both sides, and we get plus or minus the square root of 5. Therefore, x equals negative 2 plus or minus root 5. And that would be A. This next one. Since I'm seeing fractions and whole numbers, that suggests this can be factored. So the first term is made up when you multiply here and here, so that should be 2x and x. If you look at my AC, that's 42. Two numbers that multiply to make 42 that add to make 13. I could come up with it, or I can just work with these numbers here. Fractions of 21 are 3 and 7. 21 and 1 are probably not going to get to 13. So remember, it's these numbers and these numbers that multiply and then make the two numbers here that add to make negative 13. So if I put 7 here, I get 14, and then I get 3. It's not going to be that, so I have to put a 3 here and a 7. So that gives me 6x and 7x. If I make them both negative, which means these are both negative, then I get negative 13. So from there, it's just 2x minus 7 equals 0. Move that over, that becomes 7 over 2, and x equals 3, so A. Next, this one's quite easy. We just set both parts equal to 0. Make sure that you do this. Don't skimp on that because you don't want to mess up your work. And that gives you negative 3 and positive 7, so it looks like E. This one here, possibly, again, looking at the answers, I could factor this. So AC is 6. Two numbers that multiply to make 6 and add to make 5, because this is going to be x, and x, there's no 1s in front. And they multiply together, and these two multiply together have to add to make negative 5. So this is positive 6, so there's two ways you can make 5. 6 and 1, or 3 and 2. If I do 6 and 1, one has to be positive, one has to be negative, but this is positive 6, so that means both have to be negative, so it has to be negative 3 and negative 2. And there is no 6 and 1 over here, so that's another hint as well. Positive 3, positive 2. Solutions to this equation here, 4x squared plus minus 4x plus 4. We put this over here. Now, there's a couple of ways you could do this. You could complete the square on this. You could do the quadratic formula. I'm actually going to divide everything out by 4 and then do the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So you get 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 4 times 1 times 1. So I'm seeing a negative in here. And what do I mean by that? A negative under the square root. So you get 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 4 is negative 3 all over 2. Final answer, 1 plus or minus, this becomes I root 3 over 2. And it looks like they've got it split up, so I can put this over 1 over 2 and then plus or minus I root 3 over 2. So that looks like it should be D. Now it says which has non-real solutions. Now I just did the quadratic formula here, and the reason that I had non-real solutions for this, because I had the I, was because I got a negative underneath here. So what I'm going to look at is this part only, because if this is negative, then I know I don't care what my answers are, because it's not asking that, it's asking which of these has non-real solutions. So translated, which of these produces a negative underneath the square root. So we're going to test this b squared minus 4ac for each of these. So I'm going to do the first one. So this becomes me 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 6. Now, looking at this is going to be 4 plus something. So whatever this is, 24, Doesn't matter, because at the end of the day it's going to be positive and it's not a negative underneath the square root like over here. So that suggests if my c could maybe be positive and not negative and change its sign, that would be good. So that counts this one out, that counts this one out, because when I move the 6 over it becomes negative 6. There's a chance that it's this one or this one. So let's do the c. That gives me 4 again, so 2 squared, minus 4 times 1 times positive 6, and that is negative 20, which gives me a non-real solution. Convert the following to a standard form, we just multiply it out, so put the negative on the outside, do the x minus 1 times x minus 1 to get x squared minus 2x plus 1 plus 3. Change all the signs from inside the parenthesis. Oops, sorry, that should be a 1. And that gives me negative x squared plus 2x plus 2. So a. 20 here. I'm going to multiply inside the parenthesis first. X squared, that gives me negative 4x plus 1, so negative 3x minus 4. And then distribute 3x squared minus 9x minus 12, and that's b. 21, the transformational form. So transformational form is plus or minus a x minus h squared plus k. So it's really important that you know which forms we're going to use here. This tells me I need my h and my k. So in order for me to get the h from standard form, which is this, then it's negative b over 2a. So negative 6 over 2 times 3 gives me h equals negative 1. So immediately, since it's x minus h, x minus negative 1 tells me it's either going to be b or d, because it becomes x plus 1. Put the negative 1 back in, that gives me 3 times negative 1 squared, plus 6 times negative 1 minus 2. So 3 minus 6 is negative 3, minus 2 is negative 5. So b. And then this last one, transformational form here, again my h this time, I have to find my m plus my n and half it. My m is negative 2, remember we changed sign, plus 6 over 2. So that gives me 2 because it's 4 over 2. So that tells me it's x minus 2. So again it's b or d. Put the 2 back in, so it's negative 2 plus 2 times 2 minus 6. That's negative 4 times negative 4, so positive 16. So that looks like it's D. Okay, we're done.